welcome everybody. If you've never been here before, or if you're seeing my mug for the first time, I'm Adam. I teach a year-long astrology course. I call my astrology program Nightlight Astrology, Nightlight Astrology School. And basically, I teach a course in Hellenistic astrology, but mostly we're looking at Hellenistic astrology and kind of comparing it and trying to build some bridges into different modern approaches as well. So it's kind of a hybrid of ancient Hellenistic astrology and modern archetypal astrology. So students in this program throughout the year are through every season we host through this program 3 guest speakers, and we open these guest speakers talks up to the public. So you're all here as a part of the spring speaker series. So that's a little explanation if you're new. And the reason that I decided to do this, I've been doing this for a really long time now, like almost going on 10 years next year. I've been doing this for a long time for a couple of reasons. One is that I love to learn, and I like to, although I'm teaching astrology to my students or whatever, I want my students to also get exposed to other voices, other teachers, other ideas, other moods, you know, and get a sense of what the professional field is like. So that's one reason that I like to bring in other speakers. Also, I like to bring in speakers who teach on subjects that I don't know as much about, or that it's not really my forte. And I learn a lot that way. And I think that, you know, people in the program, students in the program learn a lot that way as well. The other reason I do this is to build community and to do some service work in the field. So everything that we gather in donations for these events are given directly to our speakers. So there's no profit that I make or that anyone makes other than our speakers in this series. So everything we fundraise, you'll hear me in a minute telling you how you can donate, everything goes directly to our speakers. So that will, that to me, it's a very important aspect of being in any spiritual field, is that there's some element of service to the field itself, to our colleagues, because it's very easy in an industry where, like astrology, where a lot of it is individual practitioners who are having to make a name and build a reputation and get clients, and you know, it's your own business, for there to be a degree of competition, right, and envy and stuff like that. And I know for me, within my own heart, the easiest way to do away with that is to be intentional about appreciating the expertise and beauty and brilliance of like other astrologers. So that's one of the reasons that I do it as well. And I like to create community and try to do some service, because I also owe so much of who I am as an astrologer to other astrologers, right? So I like to try to encourage my students and people in the astrological community to support other astrologers as well. So for all those reasons, we have a speaker series with 3 speakers 4 times a year, each season of the year. And like I said, it's by donation, so you can come, you can be here for free. And we collect donations during the event if you're able to. The suggested donation for today's talk, which I'll be introducing in a minute, is $15 to $25. So if you have more than that, we ask that you give more if you're able to. If you can't make that range, just give whatever you can. If you can't afford anything, that's okay. Feel free to be here. And then in the future, you know, pay it forward, teach someone what you learned, drop a little extra in next time you come to a speaker series when you're able to. So that's how we do things. All right. So I'm going to tell you about our spring speaker series. We already had our first guest on Wednesday night, Jason Hawley, who gave a wonderful talk on series. And that was really fantastic. I really enjoyed it. A lot of people really enjoyed it. Today, I'm going to be introducing our speaker of the day, Theodore, in a moment. But I want to tell you about the next talk in our speaker series before I do that. On Wednesday, April 17th, the final talk in our spring speaker series is coming from Adam Summer, who'll be giving a talk on the wisdom of Mercury cycles. So that's Wednesday evening, April 17th at 7 p.m. Eastern time. He's currently in New York City doing a series of talks on this very subject. So he's, you know, his, what do they say? He's warmed up, you know what I mean? He's going to be ready to go. So check that out as well. If you go to the events page on the Nightlight website, you will find that all of the talks for each season are there. And whoops, sorry, I did that privately. Let's put it publicly. Sorry, MJ. And so there you can go see the events. All of the speaker series are listed for whatever season it is. So you can mark your calendars in advance. I'll have the summer speaker series up probably in May or so. And then you can have the live login info ready to go. And you just use that Zoom login link at the time of the meeting. That's it. So, so that's what it is. The other reason I like to do this, I should mention, is that I love going to conferences where I can take in like 6 different speakers in a weekend. You know, I just love that, but I don't get to do it very often. And frankly, not a lot of people can do it because financially it's very expensive to travel and go to these conferences, you know. So I like to try to create a little online conference feeling. A couple different speakers over a couple of weeks, take in a lot of different ideas, kind of stir the pot a little bit, get everyone excited about astrology. So that being said, I'm wondering if Theodore is here now. Let me just look and see if good, you're here. I'm going to introduce you in a second, Theodore. Are you, let me just unmute you. Are you ready to go? I can't unmute you. You have to unmute yourself.
Yes, I'm ready to go.
Okay, wonderful. I'll just introduce you and then hand it over. And did you want to be sharing a screen for a presentation?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay, sure. Okay, I'll be handing it over to you in just a second then.
Sure.
So, well, I'm really glad that Theodore is here because we were a little worried. I think it probably was a time zone screw up, which I probably should have let you know that we just changed times because of the daylight switchover. But at any rate, so Theodore is here with us today, giving a talk on the heart of Vedic astrology. And now I want to make sure I say your last name correctly. Do I say it Naker? I don't know if I can. Let me see. Oh,
it's pronounced as Niker.
Niker. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Great. So Theodore has a background as a petroleum engineer in the oil and gas industry and has been practicing astrology professionally since 2014. He began learning psychological astrology in 2010, then moved on to traditional Western astrology with qualifications in natal, horary, mundane, locational, and medical branches. That's super impressive, by the way. They just a lot of study, clearly. He has a diploma in medieval astrology, Zoller, 2012, and a diploma in astrological studies from Rod Susskind, 2014. Born into a strong Indian cultural heritage, he naturally gravitated toward Eastern forms of astrology. Since 2016, he began studying a holistic form of Vedic astrology, which combines meaning and techniques from astrological, scriptural, tantric, yogic, and omenology in the Indian tradition, and visits India annually for that purpose. Actually, this is one of the reasons why I became interested in Theodore and his work and maybe being a good fit for this program, because I just started going to India annually myself 2 years ago. And though I'm not at all a Vedic astrologer, I just find that because I'm immersed in the study of bhakti, that I'd like to know more about Vedic astrology. And I just thought Theodore is uniquely qualified because he knows a lot about both traditions. Anyway, his specialized consultations consider factors from both Western and Vedic astrological traditions. Theodore runs retreats in South Africa and hosts webinars, workshops, and private courses in South Africa and online. He's also run workshops and gives talks in Poland and the UK. Given his practice of both major systems of astrology as complementary, he specializes in rectification for clients and other astrologers around the world. I'm going to put his website into the chat box so that you can find it. And now, before I hand it over to him, I want to tell you how you can donate for Theodore's talk today. So on the Nightlight website, there is a make a donation button. I'm going to put the link for it in the chat box right now. There it is. And you'll see the donate button on the screen right now as well. Hold on, let me make sure you can see it. So there it is. When you press that button, you can use a credit card, and the suggested donation for today is $15 to $25. But like I said earlier, if you can only do 5, that's okay. If you can do more, please do, because that helps for people who can't afford to donate today. I also like to tell people, there is a degree of what we do that is about the study of karma. So if you're going to learn and take a lot away from a talk from a teacher, it's good to put something in. It's kind of a way of showing gratitude for what you're taking away from the event. It's a good way to build good karma for yourself as an astrologer. So always be grateful for our teachers. So please donate if you can. And that being said, I'm really happy to have you here, Theodore.
Oh yeah, I'm really glad I made it as well. So it was quite close there for a moment.
I'm going to make you the host.
Great, then I'll share my screen. Okay. And yes, let me know when it comes up on your side.
There we go. Now we can see it.
Okay, so I'm going to begin the slideshow. There's only 19 slides, so don't worry.
And if you'd like to take questions as you go or at the end, just let everybody know.
Yeah, so people are welcome to ask questions. If it's a type of question that I'm going to get to, then I'll say so. And if it's a question that I'd rather deal with at the end, then I'll also say so with that. So if that's okay, just trying to get this computer to, there we go. That should be bigger now on your side once it does come up.
Let's see, we're waiting for it right now.
Okay.
There it is.
All right, I'm just going to move the cameras out the way. All right, so the presentation is on the heart of Vedic astrology. And the topics I want to talk about are karma and yoga. And it may be different from what you think yoga is, or what you may understand karma to be. And why I think these are two very good concepts or topics to begin a study of Vedic astrology with is because they form the heart of what Vedic astrology is, both in terms of foundational understanding and concepts, leading directly into how a chart is read and how the techniques are actually derived for reading the chart. So you'll find that what the signs mean, I derive even from these concepts, and how we use them. What do aspects do? What do they mean? The various, the 3 kinds of aspects that we use in Vedic astrology. They signify, one is signifying desire connections, one is signifying circumstantial connections of a karmic nature. And obviously the whole concept about desire and how that directs and plays with our will is the whole, heart of it. So karma and yoga. And the concept of yoga here specifically means, yes, there are techniques in spiritual areas of Vedic astrology that deal with Hatha yoga, Jnana yoga, Bhakti yoga, Karma yoga, Raja yoga, and how to assess those in the chart. There's a whole chart for the spiritual journey itself that is derived from the birth chart for that. But I'm not going to go into that today. I'm going to refer to karma and yoga and how they work together, specifically yoga in the sense of how is a planet's associations determining what the karma is. How is the planet's determinations and associations modifying or directing what the karma is? And it goes without saying that, yes, there might not be, astrology charts in the Vedas, from an academic or literal point of view, but it is still called Vedic astrology because the concepts at the foundation of the way this astrology is practiced and the structure of it comes directly from Vedic texts, from the Vedas itself. So if one doesn't subscribe to these concepts of karma and the transmigration of souls and yoga even to some extent, then, Vedic astrology as a practitioner may not be for you. But of course, with any form of astrology, as a client on the receiving end, I give readings to agnostics and atheists, and they turn out fine. So it's a matter of how the practitioner is using the techniques. But to understand the basis of it and the techniques themselves, one needs to sort of really get into these concepts. This is just going to be an introduction to them, but I still will have some chart examples at the end and some techniques that you can also apply in your sidereal charts as well. So the outline is going to be talking about the Sanskrit language a little bit, and it's a little bit of a demonstration, really. Some of the cycles that we talk about in Vedic astrology are derived from fundamental concepts. I'll talk about one of those, which is currently about to change. There's a conceptual schematic that shows you kind of the overlay and structure of what we're talking about in terms of reading charts. And then I'll go into talking about Graha and Karma, Graha being the word we use in Vedic astrology roughly to denote the planets, and then yoga, and then free will, this concept of fate versus free will, and how is that viewed traditionally in Vedic astrology and how that is used in practice. We'll go into some chart examples at the end. Are there any questions before we get started? Okay, so this is the very first set of verses in the Rig Veda. The Rig Veda, there are 4 Vedic texts, and from them, everything from Vedic astrology has come. A lot of the concepts in Vedic astrology are derived in various ways from the Vedas and related texts. Jyotish or Vedic astrology is a Veda Anga, it's a Vedanga, there are 6 of them, and they have to be studied together, ideally, to really have a full knowledge of this science and art. So I'm just going to quickly chant this verse. It is talking about Agni. You can see the first couple of words here. Agni, Agni, Agni. Agni is the first word in the Rig Veda. The entire Vedic corpus, the first word is Agni. And Agni is an indicator of light. It means fire. It means sacrificial fire. But more on an esoteric level, it is a connector between worlds. It's what is transforming something gross into something subtle. And it's got a sort of transport mechanism vibe about it. So light as a medium of transport, the fire as a transformation operation is what we're talking about here. And the first word here is Agni Mire. Me meaning, inside me, myself, belonging to me. And Le, this word, this one that here looks like a sign of infinity in mathematics. This sound, it's a vowel, that's an L vowel. It's not used in Sanskrit or Hindi, but it is in Vedic Sanskrit. This La sound is indicative of infinity. So the first word in the Rig Veda saying Agni Migle, saying this connector of light inside me between worlds, between concepts, between gross and subtle, that is carrying and residing within me, is also an indicator of infinity. And this whole verse, Agnimile Purohitam Yajnasya Devam Ritvejam Hotaram Ratnadhatamam Agnif Purve Bhirerishibhir Yidyonuta Neruta Sadhevam Ehavakshati Agninara Yimashnavat Poshameva Dive Dive Yashasam Viravattamam Agneyam Yajyamadvaram Vishvata Pariburasi Sa Iddeveshu Gacchati Agnirhota Kavikratu Satyas Chitrasravastama Devo Deve Bhiragamat. Now, if you remove this Agni word, Each of these verses have 5 words subsequent to the Agni conjunction. I hope you can all see that. There's in the first line, there's Purohitam Yajnasya Devamritvijam Hotaram Ratnadatamam. So there are 5 words. So in each of these lines, there are 5 words or phrases subsequent to the word Agni in a modification form. So here we are now saying that based on the 5 elements that are used in the Vedic cosmology, there are 5-fold differentiation of this Agni connector. It's connecting from inside me through all the elements in these 5-fold forms, which is also, 5 times 5 is 25. Now that's interesting because in Vedic Sanskrit there are 25 consonants. And the consonants are reflective sounds or indicative sounds of material substance. So here you are saying in one verse, the first verse in the Veda is all about how this Agni has even created the language of Sanskrit in the 5-fold form based on the elements. So each of these words can correspond to one of the 25 consonants in Sanskrit. So when you're studying Nirukta or the roots of Sanskrit words, when you're reading Vedic texts, if you're a Vedic astrologer or Vedic scholar, there's astrology in places where you never would have thought there would be astrology, okay? Because you're not looking for the word astrology. You're not looking for the word chart. It's much deeper than that. And that's why a teacher is required to really help you get into the heart of it. So there are 25 consonants in Sanskrit. There are 9 semivowels in Sanskrit, and there are 16 vowels in Sanskrit. The vowels and semivowels, which are activating in nature, correspond appropriately to the luminaries. And the 5 sets of 5 consonants correspond to the other 5 visible planets that reflect the light of the sun. And this is the Pythagorean theorem that is inherent in the Sanskrit language structure. Now, we're calling it Pythagorean theorem, but we don't know who it came from originally. So the language itself is constructed in a way that allows you to really go deep. There are people that just read Sanskrit verses in mathematics. They found that, for example, the Vishnu Suktam, which is a form of the sun, the binary sequence in there from a mathematical point of view coincides with solar flare activity. Now, we don't know, of course, where that comes from, but it is there in sound formulation. So when we're reading Sanskrit, the point I want to get across is the study of Vedic astrology. One really has to, at some point, get into the language of it. If you're studying Hermeticism or Western Hellenistic astrology, getting into the language of that culture is also important in understanding the context of how to practice that form of astrology. So going to the cycles, okay, so I'm going to just move these. Okay, so there is an objective cosmic archetype that we are calling spirit or source, which is linear, it is unified, and it is continuous. The subjective interaction with that is creation, which appears to be cyclic, it appears to be differentiated, it appears to be discontinuous. Time is linear, but the experience of time is cyclic or subjective, as we all know. So this is just a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is talking about the Kala Chakra as the wheel of time in a 5-fold manner. So Graha Raksha Tara Chakrasta. So the Graha Chakra, the Raksha Chakra, which is of the sun and the moon, their orbits, the orbits of the Tara or the stars, they are stationed in their respective circles. Chakrastaha. Paraman Vadina Jagat, in all of creation. Samvatsara Vasanena Paryatyanamisho Vibhu. So they are all abiding by the revolutions dictated to them by this eternal and almighty time. This is what this 3rd canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam is on Vedic cosmology and time derivation. So if you want to know more about time in Vedic astrology and in Vedic cosmology, these are one of the texts you can read. The verse following from this is now describing that in a fivefold manner, again through the operation of the fivefold elements. Their names are Samvatsara, Parivatsara, Idavatsara, Anuvatsara, and Vatsara. Now, how are these used? Okay, the application in Jyotish, again, let me move the videos out of the way. All right, these names of 5 sets of 12 years make up a Jovian cycle, okay, 60 years. Each one corresponding to one of the 5 elements, okay, and also one of the 5 visible planets or Graha that control those elements in Vedic astrology. This is the smallest yuga that we use. It is detailed in the Vedanga Jyotisha as well, those texts. And it roughly corresponds to 2 or 3 generations, depending what modern definition for generation you use. And more importantly, it also marks periods of changing power cycles on Earth. So every 60 years, there's a sort of shift. Now, this happened in the early 1900s. This was marking the beginning of the end of the British Empire. This happened in the 60s, which saw the propagation of democracy and the start of, the US aims across the world. And we are going into another period of change in the next couple of years. And if people want to find out more about each of those years, they can also look at the text called Jataka Parijata, which has more information on that.
I have a question.
Yes, please ask me.
So, by the way, hey, bro, glad to see ya. I follow what you said about the earthly cycles. I understand that Graha means visible planet, but I think I lost the connection of what is ending and starting these cycles. Is it to do with like Saturn, or I feel I missed something?
So these are just talking about these Jovian years, what's starting them and ending them.
So, Jovian, so it's Jupiter.
Yes, yeah, it corresponds to Jupiter. So it's 5 sets of 12 years.
Thank you.
Yeah. Jupiter is a very important planet in Vedic astrology. I'm using the Greek term planet, but if I use all the Vedic terms only, nobody would understand. So,
and Jupiter's guru, isn't he?
Yes, Jupiter is guru.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So, can you all see that, can you all see that image clearly? I'm just trying to make sure here. Okay. So basically, this is the model of the spheres as we are familiar with, also in Western traditional astrology. Okay, the spheres of the visible planets are over the Earth from a geocentric perspective. And on the outside, you have the sphere of the fixed stars, or so-called fixed stars, which even in the Western tradition was seen as closer to source than the terrestrial viewpoint of Earth. Now, everything that's listed there on the side, planets, signs, elements, seasons, nodes, all of those things are handled very differently in Vedic astrology. So doing comparisons between the two systems, as wanting them to be equivalent, is really not wise. It's important to understand each system in its own right, because that's why I'm trying to share that knowledge with you in a way. For example, the elements, and I'll just touch on one point here, the elements in Vedic astrology are not terrestrial. They are not below the sphere of the moon, which is the case in Western traditional. The elements in Vedic astrology are all existing beyond the fixed stars, because it is also in space and looking at star and stellar systems that you can see the exhibition of these elements. Some are hotter or cooler, some are larger or smaller, some are moving faster than others. So there's even the operation of the elements out there in space, and the elements in Vedic astrology are not tied to the Earth. They are beyond the stars. Okay, that's just one thing to understand. The philosophical construct of Vedic astrology is what needs to be understood first. And this is why we understand why we call the planets grahas. So in Vedic astrology, the sort of idea is that souls have descended through stellar gateways to the earthly plane. Now, with a sidereal zodiac, which is located light years out into space, so it doesn't need to correspond to seasons, but it is indicating something else, okay? The sidereal zodiac, which is light years out into space, the visible planets within our solar system are not traveling on the zodiac. They are perceived as blocking the starlight. Okay, and this blocking of starlight and also the trapping of sunlight because they reflect the light of the sun. These are two functions that the graha means to eclipse something. Okay, grahana is an eclipse in Vedic astrology. In Sanskrit, the word graha means the operation to eclipse. So in the tropical system, where the tropical zodiac is coincident with the sphere of the sun, because it is created by the apparent motion of the sun, and the projections of planets onto the ecliptic are taken as their positions, and so they are called wanderers on the zodiac. They are called planets, and that's fine. In Vedic cosmology, we don't have that case because the sidereal zodiac is light years out into space. So there's no wandering on the zodiac happening here. The conceptualization here is that the starlight is being blocked, thereby indicating effects. The sunlight is being reflected or split in several ways, thereby indicating identification with those effects. So the cosmic consciousness from the starlight point of view is being kind of trapped or blocked in a way. So as we come down through the stellar gateway, when we attach the spheres of the planets, we lose that cosmic consciousness. And then the individual consciousness of I gets identified in several different ways with the corresponding karma that the graha are indicating. We identify with the Saturn karma, we identify with the Mars karma, etc. This is a dual splitting that is happening, or eclipsing that is happening. So the descent of the soul from the cosmic stellar gateways into the solar system is likened to the singular white light that is being split sevenfold by the operation of a prism. Okay, so it is seen in the Vedic cosmology that you are kind of stuck here. You've been sort of through the mass inertia of creation as light and as a being of light and consciousness. You are working through inertial patterns of creation in this construct. Okay, I hope I've made that sort of clear now. So when astrologers say, but Aries in sidereal must be the same as Aries in tropical, no, they're not. They're not even located in the same place in space. Okay, the meaning is different because of how it's been conceived, and that's what I really want you to understand. Okay. Let me just check if there are any questions. I'm seeing a lot of... If there are any questions, please let me know, because I won't be able to look... Oh, okay. Yeah, it is reflective of the chakra system, and that can be attributed to the houses and things like that. That is true, Deidre. Okay, I'm just going to move on with the 5 elements, fire, air, in order: Akasha, which is space, then Vayu, which is air. Akasha, space, is controlled by Jupiter. Vayu, air, is controlled by Saturn, and it is sourced from the North Node. Then comes Agni, or fire, which is controlled by Mars and sourced from the Sun. Then comes Prithvi, or earth, which is controlled by Mercury and sourced from the South Node, Ketu. And then you have Jala, or water, which is controlled by Venus and sourced from the Moon. But I'm not going to go into the teaching of the elements, but that's the elemental construct. They all exist beyond the spheres of the stars. So Graha, what do Graha have to do with our karma? And this is given in one of the astrological texts. If the computer will abide by my wishes. So, right, this is my translation. So of the numerous manifestations of the Supreme, whatever word you want to use for God or divinity or source, the forms of the Graha give individual embodied souls, in your embodied state in the terrestrial realm, the results of their own karma. They destroy the strength of anti-evolutionary influences because by facing the karma, you are evolving, okay? And they increase the power of knowledge toward positive developmental influences. Because by working through these activities and life, you improve in knowledge. And that knowledge hopefully becomes wisdom. And so you evolve from that state. And being thus glowing, as it were, with the support of the Graha, individual dharma is indicated and sustained. So at some point, that light that the Graha is splitting and eclipsing, you get access to that from an individual consciousness point of view, and then also from a cosmic consciousness point of view. And then that karma is transmuted or transformed. And I'm really simplifying the Vedanta here in terms of the philosophy, but just I hope you get an idea of what is going on here. So coming to karma. It takes some time. Okay, so this is just a verse that's basically saying all these big shots in the universe that are controlling time and motions of the planets and creation and sustaining of creation and the destructive elements of creation, they are all being forced to act in some way. The sun has to act, all of these agencies or divine agents in the world, if you want to call them angels, you can call them that, they are all forced to act due to karma. So even in heaven, in the various heavens, in the various hells, in the various nether regions, in Vedic cosmology, everyone is forced to, by the force of karma that is driving everything. This is just a verse kind of describing that. So going into the theory, there are three fields of karma, the areas which karma operates. The first one is called Sharirika Karma, Sharira meaning the body, or embodied in a way. It pertains to the physical, the body, physical characteristics, external circumstances, how you're making decisions in determining your life in a way, We're recognizing the body-mind connection together affects how you think and how you make decisions. It's not one or the other, all right? So that's applied in Jyotish when we read the chart from the ascendant. Because the first thing we learned in Vedic astrology was you're assuming that you are the ascendant. Why? Your being is split into so many different ways. The ascendant perspective is just one of them, all right? And it pertains to more physical sort of karma. Then there's Manasika Karma, which is obviously Manas, meaning the mind, Manasa. It's a psychological karma, okay? Now therefore, the mind, and I'm using a capital M here for mind, because there isn't, the mind, capital M mind, or the psyche, is seen as four parts in Vedic astrology or Vedic understanding. There's Manas, which is just the receptacle of influences and stimuli. It's very robotic. It doesn't have any it's just a tool. Buddhi, which is intellect, which is interpreting that, is a selective tool. Chitta, which is the consciousness that on which this is residing, which is the source of thoughts. And ahankara, which is necessary for all the others to be engaged. You need a sense of agency. This has been loosely translated as the ego. But there are so many different egos, so the translation doesn't really relay so well. But these are the four things that make up together what we would call the psychology of a person. So there's karma that happens on this level, and it affects the flow of our thoughts as activities, because thoughts are activities of the mind, all right? And they consist of the threefold pramana, which is true knowledge, viparyaya, which is limited knowledge, or knowledge that is not used appropriately. Thoughts that are dominated by imagination. This imagination connects you to the future. That's what the future is. The future only exists for you as imagination. Otherwise, it doesn't exist. Then there are thoughts which are resident, they are restful, they are at rest. Nidra is translated as sleep, but that's a very crude translation of the word. This is the consciousness of the thoughts that are residing in the present. And then there's Spritaya, which is memory. So the past only exists for you as memory. Otherwise, it doesn't exist. If you lose your memory, the past doesn't mean anything to you. Okay? So this is karma operating on the level of the psychology. Then, as you can imagine, that is seen relative to the moon. So the moon representing the mind-body connection. In the chart, the Manasika karma is seen with the chart read from the moon. And then we have Vachika karma, which is an interesting one. And this is everything that has been taught to me by my teacher. Okay, Vachika karma is pertaining to speech. Now, the activity of the soul is seen as indicated by the intention behind speech. That is how it's been conceived. Okay, so the word is a very important thing, even in the Christian ideology. Okay, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with all of that. This intention of the soul or spirit is having a physical expression as speech. So the action of the soul is speech. The observable action of the soul is speech. And it shows the flow of intentions and causal roots for everything else, obviously. Because our soul may want something for our evolution, but in our egoistic, mental, intellectual way, we may think, no, smoking is good for me, I want to do that. And the mind then forces upon the body karma the activity of smoking, for example, even though the body is coughing and, in the beginning, at least when you first start smoking, the body knows it's not good for it. But due to force of the mind, we push that karma onto the body. And that has effects later on, etc. So like that, the karma should be understood in these three ways. And this is a chart that is seen relative to the sun. And I'll put here sun in quotation marks because there are various ways of dealing with this concept of the sun. Okay, but we'll use the sun just for now as to simplify things. All right, but it's not really, the sun is the indicator of the soul of everything, not your individual soul in the chart. But we can use it as an indicator, at least for this presentation. Okay, let me check any questions. Cyclical time. Yes, I'm so glad I'm explaining it all right. Okay, because people get caught up in their own systems, and it's like, no, just open your mind a little bit. And actually what I see, because I practice both systems of astrology together, both the tropical, which is localized to the solar system, and Vedic, which is non-localized, okay, this sort of conceptualization of descent of the soul makes the most sense to me. And that's what both astrologies are giving me information on. Okay, they are very complementary. So there are three relationships of karma. We are going to be using all of this. So there's not an exam, but you don't have to take notes. But you'll see how we use it all in charts very soon. So there is no karma possible without relativity. There's no karma possible without duality. So you need a relating principle. There's a relationship between you and your dog, and you and your desk, and you and your wife, and you and your daughter, or whoever, or you and the tree even. And that relationship, therefore, creates a sort of attachment between the two agencies of identity, which then drives the karma. So there's no karma without relationships, okay? And that is why, the moon is a very important, the moon and Venus, But Venus is exalted in Pisces, so she really doesn't. She's more about the spiritual quest, in the Lucifer definition of Venus as light bringer. But okay, so 3 relationships of karma. There's swakarma, which is of course to do with myself, what I do on my own. I go and decide I want to get a phone, I go and get the phone. That's it. All right. In Jyotish, well, to what extent is a graha indicating self-determining karma? Because sometimes a graha can indicate karma that's very collective, that's more collectively induced or pushed onto the person than self-determining. And that distinction must be made. Then there's some yoga karma, which is through direct assistance that you're doing the action. Adam is your teacher and he is helping you understand astrology. Therefore, you are doing charts. You're having direct assistance or resistance, depending on what the nature of the graha is and things like that. Someone is assisting or inhibiting that action. And remember, this is happening at physical, mental, and soul level. All right. So, to what extent is the graha directly influenced in its effects? And then there's paraspara yoga, which is indirect assistance or resistance. So the supplier to the store had an agreement with the salesman and you purchased the phone. So you purchasing the phone, you are involved in the karma, the salesperson is involved in the karma, and the supplier is involved in the karma. So if you shoot somebody, for example, that karma is yours, but the karma is also, the person who sold you the gun is also involved in the karma, as well as the supplier of the gun is involved in the karma. So this has to be seen in the chart. What is this planet, what is this graha associated with and how? Okay. And paraspara yoga karma is seen from angles to that graha. Okay. The angular placements from that graha. That's how it is seen. They are indirect influences. So then there are 3 ways of creating karma. Okay, at this point you're using me. I think that's normal and that's okay. Don't feel bad. I also lost many times when my teacher was teaching. But you go back to it, okay? There are 3 ways of creating karma. Okay, now we learned there are 3 fields of karma, body, mind, soul, roughly. Okay, ascendant, moon, sun. And there are 3 relationships which generate or facilitate karma happening. Self, direct influence, and indirect influence. Then, how we use this. So, when a graha is indicating karma, okay, that's what they do. Remember we said the purpose of the grahas is to indicate the results of karma for people. Is it acting alone? Is it having direct or indirect, positive or negative influence? This is a consideration of the yoga in the sense of yoga means union. Okay, to be yoked. Actually, to be yoked. Yuj is the root. So yuj is like, that's the rope that you use to tie cows together or something when they're plowing. Okay, is that binding together in a way. It can be liberating. It can also be restrictive. So how is this graha and its indicated karma joined with something else in the chart? So yoga from that point of view. And then when a graha is indicating karma, on what level is that yoga operating? Okay, body, mind, soul. And then this leads into 2 huge topics in Jyotish called Sambandha, how things are joined, how planets are joined. There's natural relationships between the planets. There are temporal relations between the planets. There are situational relations between the planets. And that all determines how the results of their union actually manifest. Okay, these are all rules in Vedic astrology that we have to sort of memorize. Eventually, we have to memorize. And then there's avastha, which are the various states. Because of that union and yoking together, how does that graha feel? You think Mars would be very happy being tied to Venus or being tied to the moon, who's always about peace, you know. Maybe if that moon was in Scorpio, it'd be very happy tied to that moon, you know. So there's all these kind of layers of interpretation of the karma that come into play. Avastha and Sambandha are huge topics in Vedic astrology, which I am still learning. I mean, they're huge. So there are 3 karmic fields of activity, and there are 3 methods of creating those relationships. 3 times 3 is 9. There are 9 graha that we use in Vedic astrology to indicate how this particular karma is. And that's why we don't need to have other planets in Vedic astrology, because the conceptualization is that these 9 graha will cover all the 9 possible types of karma. Okay, question time. I feel a bit like the British Prime Minister with all these. Okay. Collective karma. Yes, the mundane astrology, Martha, I'm not going to go into that, but yes, there is collective karma for sure. Yeah, for sure. Overeating. Yeah, moon problems have to do with nutrition problems and blood problems also. Moon Venus especially. Okay, so right, next. Now you have a sort of karma. How intense is it? Is it just a slap in the face, or is it like someone stabbing a spear into your chest? Okay, what is the degree of that karma? Now, okay, there's Dhrida karma, which is fixed and it's non-negotiable. All right. This is indicated by graha that are in fixed signs. Now, since you understand why modality in Vedic astrology has nothing to do with the seasons, people need to really understand this, because they need to understand the foundational concepts on how the whole thing is constructed. Okay. It is fixed in the sense that the karma indicated by the Rashi is fixed. Rashi, one of the meanings of the word Rashi, besides sign, is a fixed quantum, fixed quantity. And because it is a sidereal sign which is light years out into space, a Rashi means a fixed quantum of light. All right? Which is carrying the intentions of karma and things like that. Okay, so fixed Rashis have fixed karma. They are non-negotiable. Adrida karma is easily negotiable, easily changeable, right? This is indicated by graha that are in movable signs, which are, what we call cardinal signs in tropical astrology. But they're not really cardinal in a sense here in Vedic. So the word chara meaning movable, fast consuming is what chara sort of means. They get done quickly also. Dhrida Adrida is, as you can guess, a mix between the two. And this is showing karma that can be changed with some effort. It's not totally fixed, but it's not totally easily changeable either. You may have some delays. You may have to finish some part of it before you move forward, before it releases. Okay? All right. And that's seen by the dual signs. Dvi Svabhava. Svabhava means of two natures. Dvi meaning two. So there's a deeper meaning to the dual sign. But that's what the dual signs are called in Vedic astrology. Okay. So the degrees of karma are to be assessed as first pass in the 9th derivative chart called Nava Amsha. Nava Amsha, 9 parts. Okay, the 9th portion. There are 4 kinds of Nava Amsha charts, but one of them is used to see the intensity of the karma between body and mind and between past and future. This is the chart that changes every 12 to 15 minutes. Okay, it modifies the birth chart completely, because in that whole 2-hour frame of a ascendant, the same moon might go through 4 different variations of karma, of intensity, okay? And so the experience is different for people. All right. There's only one question this time. Yes, light is a medium. That's why, Donna, light is a particle and a wave. Okay, it's holding something, but it's also moving it. But anyway, okay. So now there are three kinds of accumulations of karma. According to the theory of transmigration of souls, which is underpinning Vedic astrology, we have been accumulating karma over lifetimes. So how do we see this? So Sanchita karma is the storehouse of all the karma over lifetimes up to now. Well, up to before this life began, or before you were conceived. All right, it's a storehouse of karma. In Vedic astrology, there is nothing in Vedic astrology that can deal with this and look into this, because astrology is about the lifetime. Okay? People that are like your spiritual guru or like Jesus or angels, they can have access to this and modify things for the future. Okay? So, but astrology in the current construct of it doesn't have anything to do with Sanchita karma. And what happened? I clicked something. Oh, okay. Right, then Prarabdha karma is of that storehouse, what has been apportioned for this lifetime to be experienced. And that is the birth chart. That's what the birth chart is showing. The birth chart, in some cases the conception chart, but the birth chart primarily shows you what this portion or quantum of that storehouse has been extracted for experience in this life. And then there's Kriyamana karma, which is, while you're working in this life, what new karma is being created. Okay, now you can understand how very quickly this becomes a cycle of nonsense. Okay, because you're creating, you're extracting, and as you're working out, you're creating new. And so that becomes this cycle of birth and rebirth and birth and rebirth as this constant self-teaching process of evolution. There's no final heaven or final hell besides what you yourself are determining. That is the basis, you know. So this Kriyamana karma, curiously, is seen in the chart of inquiry. So in horary charts, in consultation charts, this is where we assess, because it's a chart of the moment, within the lifetime that you're drawing up that horary chart or consultation chart. If you compare that to the birth chart, it will show you how far that person has come with what was promised at birth. How have they worked on it well? If the birth situation said, well, you're not going to marry, have they modified that karma right now at the consultation time? You can assess that. There are methods and tools in Vedic astrology to assess how the karma has changed from birth. And therefore, the consultation chart is very important when doing a reading for someone, because the birth chart indicators, sometimes some people really work it out and the karma is finished. You know, so you might be looking at an interpretive value at birth that has no relevance and meaning to the person where they are right now. And age has nothing to do with it, okay? So that is also seen in the Punya chart, which is the death chart, because at the end of the life, the last chart we can see is the chart for when you die. And that chart tells us what your karma you have created as left over that you are contributing back into the storehouse, okay? And there's other things that are used for that, where you're going, which world you're going to, how long you're going to spend in that world, etc. I mean, that's now can't be proven, okay? But the methods are there. So here's a diagram. So you start with the Sanchita karma, which is the source of all karma that you've got. From that, through the chart of conception as an indicator, a map for that, or the chart at birth as a map for that, you have Prarabdha karma, which is a portion of the Sanchita that is used for this lifetime. Okay, that is the birth chart. Then you have Kriyamana karma 1, which is going to have current impact on this life itself. You were born with nothing, but you work hard, you do something, you change that. You modify the karma, you transform it, okay? You go through the transformation process. and it can have effect on this life itself. All right? So that is seen by the inquiry chart, horary chart, consultation chart. It's a very important step in doing an astrology reading in Vedic astrology. It's not a trivial thing at all. All right. Then the other kind of Kriyamana is going to have a future effect. And that is seen by the death chart, and that is going back into Sanchita. Okay? So you have this shift from fate focus, fate heavy on the Sanchita side, to free will heavy sort of charts that you're looking at. All right. So now this fate is not fate versus free will in Vedic astrology. It is fate and free will, how they are both operating together, how you are working between them. That is what life is about, okay? And that is what the role of an astrologer is to help you navigate through all of that. Okay, so the last thing I had on the slide, hopefully it comes up, is under the Kriyamana 1, where your activities of karma that you create in this life have effect in this life itself. That is where the relevance and meaning of remedial measures like mantras and rituals and magic and, I don't know, whatever your faith practice is. Divine intervention. Divine intervention obviously can happen everywhere, but you as an agency with free will, on the free will side of the scale, this is where remedial measures have relevance, okay? Remedial measures, please note, cannot change karma that is very fixed, right? We have to assess what amount of karma in the chart has free will associated with it, because then we can work with that. And the person is actually able to do that. Sometimes you might have a very terrible Saturn situation and you tell somebody, oh, transform that and whatever, and they really struggle to do that. It never changes, okay? It changes in really fits and starts. Is that harmful or is that helpful? Advice to the person. Wouldn't a better advice be acceptance with what, that I think it's attributed to St. Francis of Assisi, the courage to change the things that can, the wisdom to know the difference and all that. This is where that comes in. Okay. Okay, questions before we go on. Who determines the karma for a soul before birth? That's an interesting one. In the Vedantic texts, it is shown as they are in like Plato's Timaeus and things like that, or is it Phaedrus? In the Western tradition, Adam would correct me here, where you are choosing lots. You are choosing what your experience, what your evolution wants to be. But again, that can't be proved, so who knows? But that is the theory as far as philosophy. Philosophers are full of theories. So if by studying astrology and casting your chart, are you resolving your karma? No. Resolving karma has to do with action, because karma is action. Just observing something, you're not resolving anything, okay? Where does Mahat come in? Okay. Donna, you know a little bit more. Mahat, okay, I'm not going to go into that, but maybe I'll come to it at the end. Okay. Yes, that's the whole point, Deidra. People have this concept that Vedic astrology is fatalistic. And I think that's partly due to how, Vedic astrologers are out there practice. They can be highly prescriptive, overly prescriptive. But as you can see, actually in practice, it is meant to be a lot more fluid. And it is optimistic, yes, in a way. Ownership. Okay, so, right. Now, so this free will you talked about, Theo, where and that in the chart. So let's look at this. This video stuff is really in my way. Can you guys see the chart up there, these diamonds? Can you see that? Okay. So, upachaya means the ability to grow of your own will force, okay? To push and have something move. That sort of vibe is what upachaya means. Due to activity, growth happens or it is restricted. Okay, you can keep on pushing and not go anywhere, or you can push and things will move. A measure of that is what we're calling upachaya. Okay, engaging with free will is only useful if it yields results. Okay, otherwise, is it really free? You know, you can choose to go to the doctor at 2 a.m, but it's better to go to the doctor when they're actually open. Okay, so this is sort of determination that has to happen. There's free will, but intelligent free will is a different thing altogether. All right. The whole process of understanding karma in the chart is to find out where the person can free their will from karmic effects and advise them on that. Okay? So the 7th house is the seat of vriddhi. Vriddhi as a concept is about growth potential. Okay? It is seated in the 7th house, which is also called the Astalagna. Okay? It's a very strong place of the moon because the 1-7 axis, the 7th house axis is where your whole personality is thrown opposite. It's a very strong projection energy. And this is, I said, karma cannot happen without relationships. And the 7th house is the equal relationship. And that's why your spouse is there, because they are equal to you. The moment the spouse is below or above you, it is no longer a relationship. Okay, because then there is a potential difference of energy that has to be balanced again. So vriddhi is this growth concept. It is because no karma is possible without relationship of some sort and the engagement with relativity and duality. That is the reason why it exists. Okay, and so Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita exhorts Arjuna to action and not inaction, to move forward out of his impasse that he was in at the beginning of the Gita. Okay, so sattva, if you're familiar with the gunas, they're existing even beyond the elements. But sattva, rajas, and tamas, sattva is about equilibrium. The default state of everything from a net absolute point of view is equilibrium. That is what we're calling sattva. Okay? So it is you know when to start something, you know when to stop something. That is sattvic in nature. Overdoing something and not doing something, that is rajasic and tamasic. Okay? So sattva is this ideal of equilibrium. It doesn't mean at rest. It appears to be at rest. Someone can be meditating, they may look like they're doing nothing, but internally there may be all sorts of things going on. All right? So a sattvic nature of activity means that it is balanced between forward and back, is balanced between internal and external. Okay? Is taking everything into account in alignment with the laws of the world, the laws, secular laws, natural laws, divine laws. That is a sattvic nature. So sattvic kind of upachaya is the most valuable because it's the one that is, because it is in alignment with law, whatever that capital L law is, it is the most likely to sustain the longest because it persists, all right? So we want to see where this upachaya is. The freedom principle, okay? Sattva is created or controlled by the sun and the moon. Okay, the sun controls the rajas of Mercury and Venus, and the moon controls the tamas of Mars and Saturn. So sattva, the two luminaries, are creating sattva in two different modes, positive and negative. And Jupiter is the sattva. So Jupiter is not Zeus running around having reproductive issues. Okay, Jupiter in Vedic astrology is Guru. It is sattva. It is that equilibrium. It is the binding agent for everything. It is akasha. It is space that is containing everything neutrally, okay, and in equilibrium. So that is these three sort of sattvic planets. So where they are, how do we find out where the free will is in the chart? So you place the 7th house, you put an X in the 7th house, because that is where the seat of vriddha and growth is happening. We want to see where the operation of the sun and moon and Jupiter are relative to that seat of growth potential. All right? So the moon I hope you can see, hopefully maybe if I get an annotation here, you can see, can you see the red dot on the screen? Yeah, you can, okay. So this is where the 7th house is, that's the first house. I'm using the North Indian style of the chart because it's easier for you to understand me, okay? So the 7th house is here. Now the moon rules the natural 4th house. So the 4th house from here will be the operation of the moon. 1, 2, 3, 4. That is the 10th house of the chart, okay? The sun rules the natural 5th house of the 5th sign of the zodiac. So the 5th house from the 7th house will be the 11th house. Jupiter rules the natural 9th house of the zodiac. The 9th house from the 7th house will be the 3rd house, okay? And Jupiter also rules the natural 12th house of the zodiac, and the 12th house from the 7th house is the 6th house. So these 4 houses, the 3rd house, the 6th house, the 10th house, and the 11th house, are going to show you where, you can engage with effort and push things if the houses are amenable to you in the chart. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify this a little bit just for the sake of our exercise. I'm going to replace the moon in the 7th house and the 6th house, okay? Because the moon as a principle, that whole projection principle is very strong, okay? The moon in the 10th house is about, our work and engagement and involvement. Moon in Vedic astrology is about big business, bureaucracy, the big business guys, all right? Big traders across the world, across the oceans, which are ruled by the moon. The moon is a merchant planet. Okay, so I'm going to leave that aside because we all know in our work area, we all have to work hard to make anything work there. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about the 10th house, but I'll talk about the 3rd house, the 7th house, and the 11th house. Okay, now in the chart, if you look at the 11th house from the sun, you will see in terms of your goals and aspirations, where you want to apply your sunlight and shine the most, that is where you can push and get it. It's sort of an addiction in your mind about where my ambition wants to be placed. Was that a question?
Yes, so I just want to understand, is it the sun in the 11th from the Lagna, or is it in the 11th house from the sun?
I've counted the 11th house from Lagna is the 5th house from the 7th house. And I put the sun there because the natural 5th house is Leo. So I'm just showing a sort of derivation of Upachaya here, the houses. So the 6th house and the 7th house sort of will go together. So at the end, you're going to look at the 3rd house, the 7th house, and the 11th house. The 11th house from the sun is what the sun really wants, okay? You, deep down inside. The 7th house from the moon is what you really, really want in terms of people that you want to work with, what you want from people, okay? So it determines how you...
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay? And the 3rd house from the ascendant is going to show you in your decision-making process where you can apply right thinking if you really, look carefully. So these are the 3 houses, 3, 7, and 11, that can show a degree of how free will can happen for you. So I've just simplified it. In practice, we use all 4, okay? But just to simplify things for the sake of our example. So here's a chart of Muhammad Ali. Okay, before we go into that, any questions? How are we on time? How much time do I have left? I've just got, I think, 3 examples. Yes, okay, let's do the examples. Okay, right, so just so you know the chart here, okay, let me just go through it again. Up top in this style of the chart is not the chart style I use when I practice, but it's easier for if you're coming from a Western context of astrology to understand, okay? This is always the 1st house, and we go in counterclockwise direction. Second house, third house, fourth house, fifth house, sixth house, seventh house, eighth house, ninth house, 10th house, 11th house, and 12th house. Okay? So you can see Muhammad Ali, and the numbers in the boxes are the signs. So number 4 is Cancer. Number 1 is Aries. Number 10 is Capricorn. Okay? Number 12 is Pisces. All right? So in this system, Muhammad Ali has Cancer rising. Now you think, wow, that's not, he wasn't all about fairy cakes and plum puddings. But see, this is where you got to be careful. The moon, I said, the signs are not the same in the two systems. In Vedic astrology, it's very clear the moon is a royal sign. It's a sign of the moon. The Cancer is a sign of the moon. She's the queen. Okay? This person is going to, due to their popularity with the people, which is a lunar effect, they will rise. So they are Cancer rising in Vedic astrology. All right? Now, let's talk about the 10th house ruler. The 10th house is Aries, which is ruled by Mars. Mars is in Aries. So what is the karma of Mars? What is the kind of action Mars wants to do at the physical level? It wants to fight. Okay? Obviously chosen this as an illustrated example. There will be nuances in interpretation for normal people, okay? But this is an illustrative example, so you get the point. So Mars kind of karma is about fighting, okay? Or protecting, depending how it is. And he did do both, okay? Now, Mars, what karma is indicating? Mars is in Aries, which is a movable sign. So the karma here is negotiable. It's not difficult, okay? He might be able to do the fighting with ease, okay? If this Mars in the 10th house was in Taurus, well, that might take some more time, okay? Or in Scorpio even, for that matter. Now, we have to see, to really see the intensity of the karma, we have to look at the D9 chart. So Mars here is in Cancer. Well, it's in a movable sign again. But what's interesting is Cancer is, it's here with Mercury. Cancer is the ascendant of the birth chart. So it's very strong identification with this Mars karma, because in the chart of destiny, the Mars is sitting in the same sign as the ascendant of the birth chart. And you can see the time range that this chart is valid, okay? There are other charts which we confirm, but this is the first check. Now, there's a terms and conditions here with this Mars. It's not alone in Cancer, it's with Mercury, okay? Mercury is what? If Mercury is in Cancer, which is the sign of the ascendant, where we identify, it's a relativity point of identification in the world. What does Mercury signify? Speech, words, labels. If it pertains to the first house, it has to do with the name. So he had to change his name. That was the terms and conditions that applied to this Mars karma becoming active and becoming stronger. Okay, very simple. So he changed his name, etc. All of that, okay? Now, what yogas are with Mars? That's what I'm saying. Look at Mars. It's got a yoga with Mercury, okay? Mercury is saying, hang on, Mars. You can't just do what you want with this karma. I have to be satisfied first before it can be activated. Now, if this Mars was indicating something bad or negative or challenging in the chart, I would not have advised the client in terms of Mercury sort of change, Mercury karma linked to it, because that would trigger the negative aspects of Mars. But because Mars is indicating good things for him, it's a planet in its own sign. And by the way, in Vedic astrology, a planet in its own sign does not give external results. That is a very fundamental rule, okay? It gives results at a mental level. So he's a fighter at a mental level. What is making him fight at the physical level? The rule is, if a planet is in its own sign, its external results are coming from its exaltation ruler. So for Mars, the nature of this fighting mentality is going to be channeled through Saturn, because Mars is exalted in Saturn's sign. So Saturn here is in Aries and is a retrograde. He is a very resolute fighter. Saturn shows bodybuilding in Vedic astrology with Mars, because Saturn rules the muscles, because the muscles are the ones that do all the hard work. The tearing process to make the muscles bigger is the exaltation of Mars in Capricorn. Okay, Mars rules the nervous system, Saturn rules the muscles. So Capricorn is a very muscly kind of sign, like a python or an anaconda kind of thing that will crush you. Okay, so when they are both together, they have a sort of vibe like Capricorn with them. They can be very tough, very hard kind of life, very hard in their mentality, but it's having physical results of Saturn. Okay, that's very, very strong. And is the Saturn karma okay? Oh, it's in Sagittarius, it's all right, in the 11th house. Okay, now, what is this saying from the moon? From the moon, this Mars and Saturn is in the 4th house. The 4th house from the moon in Vedic astrology is a very sensitive place because it's the heart of the moon. It's the heart, it's the root of the mind-body connection. If there are malefics there, they will bring you illness. Okay? So this, as much as he may be successful as a fighter and things like that, with his mental activities and the Saturn there, giving that Aries agility and all of that, it will still cause health issues for him. Because it is in the 4th from the moon. Because it is in the 4th from the sun, it will also give him wealth. Because the sun is what gives us our resources, and the 4th house from the sun is like treasure. So you see, in Western astrology, the 4th house has all of these attributions, and there's no way for you to tell which one to choose. But in Vedic astrology, the 4th house from the sun is treasure. The 4th house from the moon is the health, the real root cause, okay, of you being and existing all right in the world. The 4th house from the ascendant is a home. Well, it's distinguished. In Vedic astrology, the 2nd house from the ascendant is the family you are born into, and the 4th house is the family that you create yourself. There's a distinction made between them. One is the exaltation of the moon, Taurus, and the other one is the moon sign itself, Cancer. Okay, so, and that's kind of what happened to him. Because of that, he had those issues that happened to him. Now, you can see what are in the fixed signs actually in the D9 chart, because that will be the difficult karma, right? There's only one planet here, which is the sun. And out of the fixed signs, the most difficult are Aquarius and Scorpio. Aquarius is to do with the mind. Because it is a fixed air sign, it is ruled by the north node of the moon and also Saturn. It is turbulence in the extreme, like a hurricane. Okay, the fixed nature here is not about seasons. The fixed nature here is the intensity of the influence of air. And even if you read Western medicine texts that talk about the corruption of the airs and all of that, exposure to the body was seen as a corruptive thing due to the air element. That is maintained in Vedic astrology and in Ayurveda as well. So the corruptive nature of Aquarius is very strong, and it's the sun. Okay, the sun here is what is the problem, and the sun it's in his 7th house in his birth chart. He will have very tough enemies. Okay, you will have him facing his opponents, and even if he had fights with his partner out of ego issues, sun issues, will eventually deteriorate the quality of his mind and his mental faculties, and that is very tough karma because it is in Aquarius or Scorpio. They're both very difficult to change. Thankfully, there's nothing else, So you might have a wonderful Jupiter trining the sun in the birth chart, but if the Jupiter is in Scorpio in the D9 chart, you're not really benefiting from that. Okay? It's tough. It requires a lot of emotional resilience. Okay. Now, if you look at his free will capacity, let's look in the birth chart. The 11th sign from the sun is in Capricorn. So the 11th sign from that will be Scorpio, the 5th house of the chart. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5th house is how you develop yourself going forward. 9th house is the past. 5th house is the future. Because 5th house is naturally Leo, the 9th house is the temple of the sun. And the 1st house is obviously where the sun rises. So 159 in Vedic astrology, these houses have to do with time, okay? How you're moving in time, your relationship with time. Because prophecy is a solar thing, even in the Western tradition, Apollo and all of that, okay? So, and the sun naturally controls these houses, 159, because these are fire houses naturally, and naturally these are times in the day when the temperature changes, okay? But anyway, that's more to do with the sun and all, you can think about that. But it's got Scorpio in the 5th house, so in terms of fighting for what he wants going forward, his sun is saying, my ego really, really, really wants that, okay? I'm going to not give up with moving forward. You can see that. It's Scorpio on the 5th house, 11th from the sun. And there's nothing there. So if he applies himself, he will push it. There's no Graha there saying as terms and conditions, okay? The 7th house from the moon is Cancer, which is ruled by the moon, okay? Now that's interesting. So he really wants family. He wants 1st house Cancer. He wants his own family, his own place with family. His patriotic connection to other people in his country is very, very strong as well. So activism and all of that on behalf of that will be manifest in a 7th house way. And then from the ascendant, the 3rd house is Virgo, and that is ruled by Mercury. So in terms of criticism, and being sort of very health conscious and very about, words, and, his name was a big thing for him and his heritage with that. You can see all of this in Capricorn. But anyway, the ascendant ruler in Capricorn was a very steely person anyway. Even though it is the moon, eventually the moon ruling the ascendant will say, hang on, we are going to prioritize peace here. And philanthropy and peace are big things to do with the moon. And that's kind of what he got into. Okay, so the next chart example, if we have time, hopefully is somebody that we care about looking at. Doshas, yeah, Deidra, doshas, yes, exactly. There are indications to know which doshas are operating based on the rulers of the houses being in certain combinations and things like that in Ayurveda. Yes, Deidra, 3711 is modification of karma that you can. Okay, so this is the chart of Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez. And just tell me, Adam, can I move forward with this for time? Yes, okay. So I'll try to make it a bit more relevant to now. I don't look at the chart of Trump because I'm quite tired of looking at the chart of Trump. But let's look into the future. So this is by no means a statement of who's going to win the election. This is just an interesting chart to look at. Okay, so here we have Venus in the ascendant in Scorpio. As a woman for power and women's rights, that's what she's about, okay? And she's quite a forceful woman herself, as you've quite noticed in the media circuit. But let's look at the 10th house. What is she doing? What 10th house is showing us how we are doing our karma. Okay, so let's see. The 10th house here is Leo, and the sun is in Virgo. Obviously, she's going to care about the environment, Green Deal, plant deal, whatever, It's all about Virgo in terms of what she wants to do, okay? Mars is there, so she will fight. The karma there is to fight for that, okay? And Mars rules the ascendant. She's very much involved with that. Okay, and Mercury is there too. Mercury is exalted with the sun. That's, she's got into law. Mercury shows law because of all the rote work and case studies and all of that. Your speech needs to be very strong to be able to stand up and fight. And that's what she's doing in the 11th house. The 11th house is one of the houses to see where the free will is happening. And that is where if she pushes, she will be successful because Mercury is exalted, okay? Exaltation in Vedic astrology is a very serious thing, okay? It does have an aspect of the North Node, so that means the exaltation is operative, because not all times exaltation is operative in the chart. You need to check that. So, okay, but where is this sun ruling the 10th house in the D9? Is she easily able to do it? oh, we have a bit of a problem here. The sun is in Leo, all right, it's fixed. And it's with Saturn, who by nature is quite fixed. Okay, and it is in the 8th house here. So after a lot of her own personal ups and downs and failures, and she has this sort of ageism thing working against her, even where she is right now. They're saying you're too young, you're not experienced. The Saturn working against her is that terms and conditions, they're very strong, okay, in Leo. And Leo in Vedic astrology is not warm and generous, it is harsh, okay. The sun is a mild malefic in Vedic astrology because you only have one identity and you have to fight to keep it. If you start having multiple personality disorder, the sun is might as well take the sun out of the chart, okay. Determination of your life path and all of that is very strong. So you can see there's some issues there to do with the sun manifesting the 10th house, okay. Maybe the Mercury can help because of the yoga, okay. The sun's got a very strong union with Mercury, all right. Even though Mercury and Mars are natural enemies, okay, so her speech is not altogether, fluid and smooth. She has a sort of strong Martian kind of way of speaking, okay, which some people can find a bit abrasive. But let's nevertheless see what Mercury is doing. Mercury is in the sign of Jupiter, with the South Node, who also rules Pisces, by the way. So that's very strong. That's very good. It's her faith that will push her through with this Mercury. And in the Jupiterian Piscean sense about freedom of a people, the collective, okay? I care about the labor class, I care about the working class. That is also supported by the sun being with Saturn here. Saturn shows democracy because Saturn is the exaltation of Libra. Saturn is about the people and the working class people. So she's in the Democratic Party and she'll obviously be a prominent figure there because the sun is with Saturn. That's the requirement for the karma. So it just remains to be seen. If she gets a Saturn kind of person, an older person to back her, then this karma can change, all right? But if she just goes at it on herself, thinking she can push with it on her own as a sun, it's not going to happen because the sun is sitting with Saturn in a fixed sign, okay? You need Saturn on your side. Now, if you look at her birth chart, the 11th from the sun is Ketu in Cancer. So she really wants to change things up in the homeland. With the law, the 9th house Cancer, the laws of the land, she has a problem with that, okay? But that's what she studied as well. Ketu is also, the South Node also is one of the rulers of Scorpio in Vedic astrology. So the ruler of the chart in the 9th house, that shows her going to legal profession, all of that, okay? But Ketu can be quite revolutionary in a sense, different take on things. So that's what she wants to do as part of her service to the country. The 7th house from the moon is all of that Virgo. Wow, she really, her whole mind and body is in that Virgo Green Deal business, okay? It's very strong. And the 3rd house from the ascendant is Rahu in Capricorn. That's all right for politics. You need to know the system and how to work the system. The establishment system is Capricorn, okay? Vedic astrology, Capricorn is not about business. It's the establishment hard work system. Everybody's forced to do some karma there, okay? Business is shown by Virgo in Vedic astrology and Mercury. So this was a client I had, is the last example. She asked about marriage, okay? She just recently turned 50 last year. Of course, I'm sharing her chart with permission. So the 7th house ruler, first of all, we've got the South Node in the 7th house. In Virgo, that's not entirely supportive, okay? The 7th house ruler is in the 12th house. That's what she wants. She wants marriage. We see marriage from the 12th house in Vedic astrology because to be married with somebody means you need to be able to sleep with them in peace. But also we recognize that marriage is something fated from the subconscious, and that's why we take marriage from the 12th house. So the ruler of the 7th house in the 12th house can show a positive testimony for marriage. Now, Mercury is in a fixed sign and it's in Aquarius. So, okay, minus major big strikes there, all right? It's also retrograde. Mercury in the destiny chart is in Scorpio, the other horrible fixed sign in terms of fixed karma. And it's with Saturn, who is fixed. So this is very difficult. There was very little I could advise her to change that. But she can manifest it through Saturn. Now, where is Saturn in the birth chart? It's in the ascendant. It rules the 10th and the 11th house. 11th and 12th house. So I said to her, when you travel abroad, because 9th house ruler is there, when you travel abroad for your work, you can have short dalliances with people that are older than you. They would be more sustainable and more likely to last. But make sure they're of a Piscean sort of nature. So, and that's what she's doing. She's enjoying some relationships at that level. There's no marriage as a formal 9th house thing, but it is what she can get out of it. It's very difficult. It's taken her a long time to actually get to that point, but that's where she is. So thank you for listening. I hope that's been
I have a question on that last chart, if I could, Theo.
Yes, MJ.
So I understand. I'm just trying to get my head around. There's so much to get my head around for Jyotish. You're a great teacher, by the way, but I'm sure we all share that opinion, but I just wanted to voice it. And I just wondered about, when you say marriage, does it have to be like traditional marriage, or would that be just any cohabitation, or how do the Jyotish systems see that, please?
Yes. So traditionally, it is going to be traditional. But whether it's cohabitation or it's, and I mean this, even same-gender marriages or unions, civil unions, that deep connection is still coming from the 12th house. That deep desire that is almost unconscious for you to want to be with this, because we see marriage as a serious relationship. If it is a serious relationship for marriage, for whatever reason, it doesn't have to be for good reasons that people get married, but it is coming from the 12th house, because the 12th house, what happens with marriage is it usually propagates genetic memory, whether it's through physical children or not, okay? And the 4th house shows the mother, and the 9th house shows the father in Vedic astrology. So if you join them together, the 9th house from the 4th house is the 12th house. And the 4th house from the 9th house is again the 12th house. So in the 12th house is a storage of genetic memory that has been received, and out of which you are propagating and reaching out, just like how your mother and father came together. The 12th house contains the patterns for you finding that similar kind of relationship for that sort of karma. Okay, that's how it's derived. There's a lot of things in Vedic astrology that are derived, so thanks for bearing with me. Okay, Mahat, okay, I'll come to that. And just go up. Doshas, okay. Stay which signs are in which modes. So Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, these are the English names for them, which I'm using for you. Those are the movable signs. The fixed signs are Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius, out of which Scorpio and Aquarius are the most difficult to deal with or to break. And the dual signs, Pisces, Gemini, Sagittarius, and Virgo, are the in-between ones. So that's that. So if you are a magic practitioner in Western traditional astrology, you do magic for people, you create talismans, it's important to know you can't just go with the birth chart. I had a client who had a very famous Western traditional astrologer create a Mercury talisman as a book for her. And she had bone cancer diagnosis, because Mercury in her health chart and in the karmic D9 chart was definitely indicating illness. And it was in the sign of Leo, which shows the bones. The bones are ruled by the sun in Vedic astrology, because the moon, the blood comes out of the bones. So this is how you have to be very careful if you're doing those sort of things for people. So I told her, no, please put that book away, because the moment you got that book, the next month you were diagnosed. So this is, we've got to be very careful what we do with magic. In that Kriya Mana Karma stage, things have to be checked as to what the effect of planets Graha have multiple effects. They are holding karma at various levels. And we have to assess what those are and what level they're at and what intensity they're at, what yogas they're with will affect that, because then you can advise the person sort of accordingly. And that's why I like doing both the astrologies, besides my intention to become schizophrenic one day. But yes, I hope that has been helpful and given you an insight into the foundational sort of concepts in Vedic astrology. And please, if you're practicing and looking at both systems, understand that they should be handled differently. And then you'll be okay. You won't have this equivalence sort of intoxication that people have and get into problems with. All right. Are there any other questions, Adam? Otherwise, all yours. I can stop sharing, I think.
Thank you, Theo. That was really awesome.
Oh, yes, Mahat. Sorry. Forgot. Mahat. So Mahat is the residence of where these elements are residing. That is this Mahat principle. It is beyond the fixed stars and is actually in operation where the nodes are. The nodes in Vedic astrology come from beyond the fixed stars. Well, they operate from there down to the sublunar sphere. So that is where Mahat is, and that it is the feminine that is generating in that chaotic sort of model way of creation and holding these 5 elements in equilibrium. That is Mahat. But I'm sure you know a lot more about Ayurveda and stuff like that. But yes, we can go into a lot more, but I'll stop sharing for now. I think that should be enough. Thank you everyone for listening and for your time. And thanks, Adam.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. I'm going to share my screen. Well, there we go. Okay. Okay, thank you. That was awesome. I am going to start my video again so you can see me. Very cool. Yeah, that was really interesting. Thank you. I feel like I learned so much. I saw one question there. Someone was asking if you would recommend any basic or introductory texts for learning more.
Okay, all right. I know I'm assuming this is a Western audience. So there's a couple of books that are very good. The one I would recommend that is, the content-wise is also very meaty. And the discussion of theories and the holistic approach is also there. There's a book by Vishti Larson called Jyotish, Words of My Master. And there's also a 2-volume series by Freedom Cole called Science of Light. Those are 2 very good. Yes, those are 2 very good. Should I type them up? Would that help?
Please type them.
Let me try and see where I can find them.
I believe this is the one right here, right?
Yes, and that's the first volume. There's a second volume that's slightly brownish. There's down below, and there's a book by Vishti Larson called Jyotish, Words of My Master. They're both very good to go through together. Vishti's book doesn't really, hold your hand all the time, but so Freedom's book would be a good place to get started. But if you want to know about like really real fundamentals, like there are a lot of cookbook, style books out there, but these are 2 books that are not cookbook style. They will help you to understand the depth of the techniques.
Nice, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on that note, I will remind everybody that if you have not already donated, we had a good amount of donations come in during the talk today. But just a reminder, because there's some of you that probably have not donated yet, the link is now in the chat box. You can go here, press the donate button. 15 to 25 is suggested, but anything you can do is fine. If you can do more, that would be great. If not, that's okay too. Remember, everything that we raise from these talks goes right to our speakers. So And let me redirect you to our speaker series page, which I will also put into the chat box again, because we have one more talk in our spring speaker series, and that is on April 17th with Adam Summer. Adam will be giving a talk on the wisdom of Mercury cycles. And I think someone started listening to Celine Dion, so I'm just going to press mute. So Adam will be with us on April 17th, Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. The live login information is here on the Spring Speaker Series page of my website, so check it out. Also, if you're interested in learning more about Theo's work, Theodore's work, it is Spica. Can you tell us your website again? I'm going to put it in here in a second, but
yes, it's www.speakastrology.com, one word. And all my consultation offerings are on there. And all of them are in both systems of astrology. So some things are easier to see in Vedic astrology, like where should I have property, what materials should be in the house, when am I likely to get the property, when is my boss going to change, so there are detailed questions like when is my daughter-in-law going to give birth and which week next year, and will the birth be complicated or not. Like Vedic astrology has techniques already in place that deal with those details fairly quickly, but Western astrology also gives a very nice overview and also can be quite detailed if you know what you're doing. So they always end up being complementary, even down to predictions. They tend to be in the ballpark of each other.
Nice. Thank you very much. This was, like I said, super informative, learned a lot. I think one of my favorite experiences, and I'm not going to speak for everyone, but I think probably some people here can relate. One of my favorite experiences is feeling like I've been thrown in the deep end of the pool a little bit. When you don't know that there's a deep end, it's a little shocking. It's also really inspiring because it makes you realize the depth of things that you don't yet know, things that you may still learn. So I found this very inspiring, even if at times I felt like, wow, there's so much here. It's like an ocean. So I really appreciated it. I feel like the experience as a whole, I'm going to let wash over me for a while. And I think I'm going to take a look at those Science of Light books. They look really interesting. And I think that sounds like a good place to start too. So, and we have to have you come back sometime and teach us a bit more about specific topics or something like that.
Sure.
Well, very good. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. This was excellent. Like I said, on the 17th, we're back with Adam Summer, so I hope to see you all then. I hope you all have a great rest of your weekend, and thanks one more time, Theodore, for being here today.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Adam, and thanks, everyone, for having the patience and coming here to learn something.
Very good. Okay, take care, everyone. Have a nice day. Bye.
Yeah, thank you, Adam, for organizing it.
You bet.
Thanks. Bye.